Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Community Empowerment Hour. And my name is Maury Mungeon. I'll be one of your hosts for this evening. And we just want to welcome you all in joining us this evening. We know that life is so busy and there's so many different things that you can be doing. And but we just want to thank you for joining us this evening. We want to welcome you in a special way. And just so that you can get caught up, we've been doing this now for some time as far as having this time period to share with the community. And if by chance you missed any of the programs, you will notice in a minute in the chat will be a website. We have a health website that will give you some valuable health tips. And it also will let you know when we will be having events as well. But on that website, you can go back and look at all of the events that we have had in the past. So I encourage you to grab that, jot that website down so that you will be able to go back and see all the programs that we've had in the past. I mean, really some powerful, encouraging information that we've been bringing. And as a matter of fact, a week from, well, 2 weeks from this Tuesday, which is our next segment, for those of you who are or was contemplating whether to open a business, you know, how we say to ourselves, man, I want to start my own business. Well, we will be having a gentleman that will be sharing his story and about business, starting a business, all the ins and outs of how to operate and run a business. So if you were contemplating something like that, I encourage you to join on in 2 weeks so that you can, just be informed. And we're not talking, or we're not, it's not someone who read a book and sharing the knowledge of what he gained by reading the book. No, this gentleman is in business and a very successful business. So we encourage you. And if you know of someone who's thinking about that as well, we want you to invite them on the same Zoom number, same time in 2 weeks. But this evening, I am really excited about our program. We will be presenting on vegan cooking again. Now, if you're like me, I love to eat, and there's nothing better than eating, but there is even something even better than eating, and that's eating clean, healthy, good meals. And that's what we want to present to you tonight. And this is what we try to present each and every week. Things that will, or information that will empower the community. Knowledge is key. Knowledge brings about power. And life has its many challenges. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help the community out as much as possible in bringing some of these events. And I think we have an early poll that we can probably bring up now about maybe what it is that you may want to see in the future. And if you want to bring it up now, and depending on the audience, we can even bring this one up a little bit later, but you can fill that form out and just press submit, and it'll clear your screen, just to give us some idea of what you're interested in, because we know that there are different temperaments of people, and we just want to try to provide something for everyone. So definitely fill that out. Okay, so without further ado, I will bring up Terry, but first, I will have a word of prayer, and then I will bring up Miss Terry Robbins. So let's take a minute, a few seconds to have a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for allowing us the privilege and the opportunity to take this time to empower not only us, but the community. We thank you for the knowledge that you've given so much. We thank you for the people, the presenters' willingness to share the information. Pray that you would be with our presenter this evening. May you guide her and give her wisdom. And then I pray also that you would be with the audience as well. Maybe not today, but maybe somewhere down the line where someone may be watching it on YouTube. May you allow them to understand what's said and empower them for a more healthier, happy life. So we thank you. We thank you for hearing and answering this prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, now I am going to bring up Terry Robbins, who will be taking over from this period. And then I just want to remind everyone to, or just let everyone know that during the segment, if you have, or if something happens, you have a question about it, just jot it down, or you can actually put it in the chat and we'll hold on to it. Because after she finishes, we're gonna have a question and answer segment. Without further ado, Terry, it's all yours.
Thank you guys for coming and joining us again this evening. It's always a privilege for me to share the knowledge that God has shared with me, with others, to help somehow to enrich and improve the lives of others. So it is with great joy that I bring to you tonight's menu, which is beans. And for a long time, beans have been ignored by the culinary world, and not just in the professional level, but even as amateur cooks and home cooks, they're often ignored. They are, but would like to share with you some of the information that I have learned about beans and why beans feature very prominently and often in my menu and in my kitchen. There's a little known fact that I think a lot of people don't know. In Genesis 1:29, God tells us, behold, I've given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and to you it shall be for meat. But did you know that our diet at that time was supposed to consist of seeds and fruits and nuts? And when I first read it, like a lot of people, I thought seeds. I thought pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, fruit and nuts. It doesn't sound like it's going to be very filling, nor is it going to be very satisfying. But did you know that beans and most of the legumes, in fact, all legumes, are seeds? I never knew that. I thought beans and legumes were vegetables, which is what most people think of them, but they are not. And the reason why they're classified as a seed is because they are found inside the fruit of the plant. There's not a bean or a pea around that does not grow inside of a pod. And that's what makes them seeds, because the pod itself would be fruit and what's inside would be seeds. And if you think about it, everything we classify as fruit has seeds inside. And so the seeds, the beans and legumes, are seeds. With that knowledge, we can rest assured that beans are God-given miracle food. And indeed they are. Nutritionalists tell us now that we should eat beans every day. Every day? That sounds crazy. But why? Why should we have beans every day? Well, beans contain amino acids, which are protein building blocks that our bodies use to heal and to make new tissue such as bone and muscle, hair, skin, and blood. They also contain folate, which is essential for making red blood cells. And as every childbearing woman can attest to, is vital for doing the formation of the fetus. Now, they also have antioxidants, which fight free radicals that help to protect the body from disease. And by replacing high fat animal proteins with beans, people who consume beans regularly may be less likely to die of a heart attack or any other cardiovascular problem. That's according to a 2017 meta-analysis study that was done. Beans lower cholesterol. That's something that's very important for, there are a lot of people who suffer with high cholesterol. If you're suffering, then your answer is in beans. They are high in fiber, and the fiber attaches to the bad cholesterol that it may be in your bloodstream, and it allows the body to pass the bad cholesterol through your body because of the aid of the fiber that's found in beans through your digestive system and will come out as waste. It reduces the risk of cancer. And again, it does that because of the fiber in it, and the risk of diabetes. And that is all owed to that high fiber content. The fiber, as anyone who is suffering with diabetes knows or should know, fiber is the friend of the person who's suffering with diabetes. Fiber allows for the slow intake and of sugar into the bloodstream, which keeps your blood sugar level. You don't want the spikes and the valleys that you get when your blood sugar is not controlled. And then you're having these spikes where you're feeling really bad and you have to have something to bring the blood sugar up. The high fiber of beans keeps and regulates your blood sugar because it controls the absorption of insulin into the blood. And it can also prevent a fatty liver. And it controls your appetite because eating high fiber foods keeps you fuller and satiated longer. And so you're less likely to be snacking on things that are not very healthy. So overall, it improves your gut health. And it also will help you to lose weight. Sadly, many people miss out on the blessings that beans contain because of many different things. I heard excuses for not eating beans, including, well, they give you gas and they take too long and all kind of reasons. They're boring. Beans are anything but boring. They can be prepared in a myriad of ways, and they can range from savory to sweet. In fact, if you think about it, the Muslim Nation of Islam, they take beans to make them into pies. They're known for their bean pies, which they then sell on the streets. And you find them in most of the big cities selling their bean pies during the summertime on the street. And the beans we're cooking today are listed in the top 10 healthiest beans and legumes you can eat. And you can find that in the Healthline. I want to share with you quickly some nutritional information about pinto beans. And pinto beans are the beans that's being cooked in our video. They contain, for 1 cup of pinto beans, you're going to get only about 245 calories. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, a cup is way too much. Generally, when I sit down to eat, because I just don't have a large appetite and I get full very quickly, I can't eat more than 1/4 cup of beans. And I'm really pressing to get that 1/4 down because they're so filling. But in that 1 cup of beans, you're going to get 245 calories. and you're going to get 15 grams of protein and 15 grams of fiber. You're going to get 74% of your recommended daily allowance of folate, 39% of recommended daily allowance of manganese, 29% of your daily recommended allowance of copper, and 22% of your recommended daily allowance of the thiamine, which is vitamin B1. As you know, those B1 vitamins are very important. So to kind of recap, pinto beans may help reduce your blood cholesterol. In a study of about 16 people, they found that by eating 1/2 cup of pinto beans per day for 8 weeks, significantly reduced the total overall cholesterol and the bad LDL cholesterol in the blood. Another study showed that pinto beans reduced the LDL as well as increased the production of proportionally of the short chain fatty acids produced by gut bacteria. Thereby, it maintains good gut health and proportionate to good for gut health. Like many beans, the pinto beans can also reduce, as we discussed earlier. This is from these are quotes from various medical journals. And if you would like to have that research, you can email me and I will send you where can be found. And as we discussed, they reduce the rise in blood sugar that happens after eating a meal and keeps your blood sugar level. So I will post my email in the chat, and if there are any recipes on the video that you would like, please feel free. There are going to actually, and I'm not sure if it's going to show in this video, but we actually featured 3 recipes in this particular video. So if you see we're doing the beans, we also featured my vegan cornbread as well as a dessert, which is chai pudding. Very high in fiber, very like no fat at all, just fruit and some chai pudding, no processed sugar at all, and very little of the sweetener that we used. But if you would like to have any of those recipes, please feel free to email me and I will get them to you. So that's all that I have. We will be back later for a Q&A. If you have questions, please put them into the chat. Hi, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today, we are doing bean 101. We'll be preparing some pinto beans. Now, although the recipe is specifically saying pinto beans, this recipe can be used for any bean or legume that you wish to prepare it with. It's also a wonderful recipe for any stews or soups. And our ingredients today, we'll have 2 cups of pinto beans, a cup of carrots, 1 cup of Vidalia onions, a cup of green bell pepper, and a cup of fresh tomato. Our herbs that we'll be putting in our pot, that will be flavored in our pot, consist of fresh and dried herbs, and they are fresh thyme, fresh cilantro, dried bay, and dried parsley. In addition, we'll also be having a teaspoon each of onion powder and garlic powder, and cumin. We also have a tablespoon of fresh chopped garlic and 1 teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt. So we're going to go ahead and get started cooking. I have my vegetable oil, which has been heating on a very light setting, and it should be nice and warm. Yes, we hear a nice sizzle. So we're going to start with our carrots. We always cook our vegetables in order of cook time. So the carrots, which will take a little more time to cook, we're going to get them going first, and then we'll add our onions. Now I am using Vidalia onions in this recipe because I happen to like the flavor that the sweet Vidalia onion adds to the pot. But if you do not have Vidalia, please feel free to substitute with the white onion or plain yellow onion. I've even been known to add red onion if that's all I have. So please feel free. Whatever onion you happen to have available to you, you'll want to use that. It'll take just about maybe 2 minutes for the carrots because I have chopped them very finely. You do want them to soften and get tender. You don't want hard carrots in your beans. And you know, I'm a big fan of texture, but texture needs to be consistent. So we want them to start to soften and to get tender. Of course, they will cook some more as we add the beans and the broth. And I forgot to mention I'm using 2 cups of vegetable broth in this as well. So we're going to go ahead and add our onions at this time. And everything is, whenever you're chopping vegetables, whether you're making beans or stews, you want your vegetables to be consistently about the same size so that they will cook evenly. At this point, I'm going to adjust my heat and cover this and allow the vegetables to cook a little bit while I share some information with you. I don't know if you're aware of it, but beans are often referred to as a vegetable. However, beans are actually a seed. And we know that they are seeds because we find beans in the pod of the plant. And so, as you know, the fruit carries the seed. So the pod would be the fruit and the beans are the seeds. And as a result of it, it's consistent with our instruction in Genesis 29 when Jesus said, or God tells us that he's given us every herb-bearing seed. And this is part of the original diet that God gave to us. So when people think, well, if all we can have is seeds and fruit, what kind of diet would that be? Oh, now how our diet has exploded when you think of the numerous number of beans and legumes that are included in that diet. And just for your information, 1 cup of pinto beans will give you 15.4 grams of protein. Isn't that awesome? Not to mention, you're going to get the same amount of fiber. And for those who are struggling with or suffering with diabetes, or maybe you're pre-diabetic or hypertension, this is very good news because, as you know, food that's rich in fiber, it helps to control your blood sugar level and it keeps you from becoming insulin dependent. It also, that same cup of beans also includes 74% of your recommended daily allowance of folate, vitamin B9, which is very important for childbearing age women. But throughout your life, you need folate in your diet, and at 74%, with just 1 cup, it won't take a lot of beans to meet your requirements. In addition, you're getting 39% of your daily recommended amount of manganese, which we discussed prior to this in our previous cooking demo, the importance of manganese in the diet. You're also going to get 22% of your recommended daily allowance of thiamine. Beans are wonderful because they're readily available all over the world. They're economical. They're virtually fat-free. In our pot, we're sauteing our vegetables in only 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and that's the only fat that will be going into. I should mention that all of our ingredients are organic, and while I am not 100% organic, I do try to purchase as often as I can organic. And I know that there's some question about whether stuff is really organic or not, and the truth of the matter is we don't know. But what we do know is that there are organic farms which do not use pesticides. And even if there's some residual rollover from the other farms, the amount and level of pesticides in your organic food is going to be considerably less than what you will find in your regular processed food. So we're now going to add our green peppers to our pot. And it's starting to smell good in here already. There's something wonderful about onions and garlic that just make the flavor of your pot just soar. So we've added our green pepper. And we're going to let that cook for a minute, and then we are going to add in our herbs, spices, and then the last bit that we will add before adding the beans will be our tomatoes. So we're going to clear our workstation a little bit just so that we have space to do what we need to do. And we'll bring over our beans. And the last thing will be this is a vegetable stock. It is also organic. If you're able to make your own vegetable stock, that is great. It is very easy to do when you're making and cooking throughout the week. What I usually do is you cut onions and carrots and garlic and all the other tomatoes you're cooking with, rather than toss them into the garbage disposal, the skins and the ends that we cut off, wash them and keep them in a bag in the refrigerator is what I do. And then when I'm ready to make my vegetable stock, I simply take those clippings and leftover bits from the peppers and the onions and everything, put them into a pot with water and let them boil, and you will end up with a very rich and lovely broth. Now, as an added bonus when I'm making my broth, I usually will add in a couple of bay leaves and maybe some other herbs, so that when I go to cook with my broth, it'll already be seasoned. So now this pot is cooking very well. We're going to now add in first our garlic. Need that cooking time. Let that get in the pot and add its loveliness to it. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have garlic and onions, because I love garlic and onions, and I can't think of a savory dish that I cook that I don't use onions and garlic in. They're very good for you. They're one of the few white vegetables available to us, and white vegetables bring a certain type of vitamin that you can't get anywhere else, and you do need them. And I hear people say all the time, I don't like onions, I don't like garlic. Garlic makes your breath stink. Well, if you're eating that much garlic that your breath is starting to stink, then you may need to just cut back on the amount, or simply chew some parsley, because parsley is a natural neutralizer and will do away with it. Speaking of natural neutralizers and parsley, we're going to be using, in addition to the dried parsley, which I'm going to add now to our pot, we're also going to be using our common parsley cousin, which is cilantro. And a lot of people don't like the taste of cilantro. Cilantro is a very interesting plant. It is the same plant from which we get coriander. And what's interesting about the plant is the plant leaves are edible, and the plant seeds, which makes up coriander, also edible, but have very different tastes. The leaves, the young leaves, which is for cilantro, has a very bright citrus taste, whereas the seeds, which are the result after the flowering of the plant, so it's from a mature plant, has a earthy taste, which is a cross between sage and lemon. So it's a very interesting thing. They're both used very highly in Latin, Indian, and Chinese cooking. Now what's interesting is cilantro is commonly known as Chinese parsley. I don't know why, because it's grown all over the world, but it's called Chinese parsley. I suspect it was dubbed that name at some point. Now I've just added here all of my aromatics, and the aromatics are things that add flavor and also depth of your senses, because they also give an aroma. So that's why I believe that's why we call them aromatics, because they're very aromatic. We're going to add our spices, which are onion and garlic powder and cumin. and some sea salt. That's it. See, very simple. Now, what's going to give us the flavor in our pot is going to be those bay leaves. Now, I've had people ask how much bay should we add, and that's interesting because the bay leaves is not like any other spice where you can just measure it out. They're actual leaves from a tree, and the ratio that I generally use when I'm cooking is 1 large leaf to every cup of whatever it is I'm cooking. So we're using 2 cups, a little over 2 cups of beans today. So I'm using actually 2.5 leaves. So 2 large leaves and 1 small. So at this point we want to add our beans. I can smell it. Use your nose when you're cooking. I rarely time anything that I'm cooking, whether I'm baking a cake or cooking. I use my nose. My nose tells me when things are done. And it's something that you will, as the more you cook, you'll learn to do. So like this morning when I got up and made my cornbread, I put it in, I set it and forgot it. But then when I smell the aroma of the cornbread, I said, my cornbread is done. I come to the oven and sure enough, it's done. So now we've added everything to the pot. Besides our tomatoes, we're going to add our tomatoes in now. The tomatoes are going to add acid, and they're also going to add some liquid to the pot. It's the Thai cooking. It's heavily predicated on balance of flavors and textures. So you'll see them often using sweet and sour together and other things together because they are very heavy on making sure that there's balance. They believe balance equals good digestion. And so they do try to balance everything. Nothing too sweet, nothing too sour, nothing too sour. And so tomatoes are a way to help balance your pot and keep it from being too sharp. Tomatoes are also a wonderful way to deal with bitterness. Sometimes you're cooking and certain elements will bring bitterness to your pot. If you find your pot is a little too bitter, adding some tomato or some of the acid will help to take care of that. Now, this is far from ready. We've added our 2 cups of vegetable stock. Everything's in the pot, but certain things only work in a wet environment, and bay is one of those things. In order to get the full benefit of the bay leaf, you need, and if you're using fresh thyme, the same thing, you need to have liquid in the pot for it to really bloom and to come above. So we have this now set at about a medium heat. We've added the vegetable stock, and we are going to adjust this. You don't want it to, there we go. We're going to let it come to temperature and simmer. What we're trying to achieve is a reduction of the stock that we have added to this pot. Now, I want to share some more information with you about beans. And what I have learned over the years is that beans help to reduce, not only help to reduce your blood sugar because of the high fiber, but it also helps to reduce blood cholesterol. A study of 16 people that were eating a half cup of pinto beans every day for 8 weeks showed a significant reduction of total cholesterol, both the LDL, which is called the bad, and the HDL, which is supposedly good cholesterol in the blood. And another study showed that pinto beans reduce the LDL cholesterol as well as increasing the production proportionate of the HDL and the production of what's called it's a short chain fatty acid that produces gut bacteria. So that means you have good gut health as a result of eating beans. And like many beans, pinto beans can also reduce the rise in blood sugar, as we shared earlier, that happens after you have a meal. You have had a nice filling meal and you're full as a tick, and you feel all of a sudden you need to sleep. That is because your blood sugar level has risen. And as a consequence of the rise, you feel lethargic and you want to sleep. Well, what happens when you eat beans is it reduces the rise and prevents the peaks and falls in your blood sugar, so that your blood sugar doesn't peak and fall, which is very unhealthy and leads directly to insulin resistance. And then you end up, unfortunately, with diabetes. Now, I prepared some questions that I think might be helpful. One of the big questions I get a lot from people who are transitioning from a meat-eating diet is, can I get enough protein by just eating vegetables and beans? And the answer, thankfully, is yes. God made provisions so that we can get all the protein we need each day by simply eating vegetables, seeds, fruits, and nuts. Science has shown by combining legumes, like pinto beans, with the whole grain, we form a complete protein which provides us with all the essential nutrients and vitamins that we need. And this was based on a study that was done from Health Essentials. And if you want the references of where my information came from, you can feel free to email me and I will send you those references. But just for the sake of time now, all my references come from medical journals, the Medical News Today, Healthline, Health Essentials, The List, and Everyday Health are the main sources that I'm quoting from. So you want to bring beans into your diet, but you're concerned because, as everyone knows, beans equal gas. And this is due to an insoluble carbohydrate that's found in beans as well as in cruciferous vegetables that produce gas because the body's trying to process it. But that thanks to this carb, this is what is actually causing the bloating feeling that you sometimes get when you eat beans and other cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cabbage and Brussels sprouts. There are ways to reduce the gas and keep your beans. And I'm going to give you about 3 ways that you can reduce gas. One of them is to slowly introduce beans into your diet. If you're just starting out trying to introduce beans, don't sit down and have an amount full of beans. Start out with just a few tablespoons, maybe 3-4 tablespoons at a time, and allow your body to adjust because they're so fibrous that your body needs time to adjust to processing such fibrous food. And that's one way. And make sure you chew your food thoroughly. Have you ever been told as a child, slow down and chew slowly? There's much to be said for that, not only when you eat beans, but in general. It helps your process. It helps the food to be processed through your system more thoroughly. Second, you want to cook your beans until they're very soft. I personally have had beans that were almost inedible because people have not soaked them long enough, or maybe they didn't sort them because, as you know, when you get a bag of beans, you sort through them. Sometimes you get a stone. Sometimes the beans are not matured when they pick them, so they're hard, and it takes forever and a day for them to soften. So make sure you cook your beans thoroughly. Sort them. If you're using dry beans, make sure that they are no stones or any immature beans in there. Third, you want to add, there's different herbs that you can add to your pot that will naturally reduce the gas that's produced. One of which we're using today, and that is cumin. Others include ginger, and there's an Indian, I'm going to say it wrong, ajwain, and then there's a Chinese epizodi. And I'm sorry, it's not Chinese, it's Mexican. I don't know where these are and if they're found in the U.S., but you can find ginger and you can find cumin anywhere in the U.S. And simply by adding some cumin to your pot, or ginger, you have reduced it. The last thing I'm going to say, another way to reduce gas produced by beans is to make sure that you soak them for a full 48 hours. I know that there are fast methods where you can parboil them and do this, but the problem with that is you're not releasing the beans, the gas that's building up in them, unless you soak them for 45 hours, and you want to change the water very frequently. You don't want to use that water to cook them in. You want to pour that water off, rinse them again, and use fresh water when you're cooking them, if you choose to use dry beans. But 48 hours is the minimum that you should soak them. I can hear my pot calling me, so I'm going to go and check my beans. And they're just cooking away. So at this point, I'm going to let them do what they're doing, because they have not reduced enough. You can see that the liquid has reduced some, but not enough for my liking. And I'm going to take the top off so we can evaporate. So there is a chain of thought in the medical community that beans are so good and healthy for you that you should eat beans every day. And what happens if you eat beans every day? Chances are, if you eat beans every day, one, you'll drop a few pounds. And we can all stand to lose a few pounds. And this, Jamie Hickley is a certified trainer in nutrition. He said legume-based meals have been shown to be more satiating than animal-based meals, probably due to the combination of fiber, protein, and slowly digested carbs. He explained regular legume eaters have healthier body weight than those who do not eat these foods regularly, and legumes can help people lose excess weight. So if you're on the same tip as I and you're trying to drop some pounds, eating beans, a half a cup of beans to a cup of beans every day is very good for you. It increases your fiber, it satiates you, and so that you're so full that you're less likely to snack on unhealthy things. 2, if you already have high cholesterol or want to make sure that you never get it, choosing to eat beans every day will help with that. As a noted dietitian Sandra Goldtree said, your LDL cholesterol levels will drop because beans are rich in soluble fiber, she told the list, and soluble fiber attaches to cholesterol particles and take them out of the body, helping to reduce the overall cholesterol levels, and that's how your cholesterol goes down. 3, your heart will thank you if you choose to eat beans every day. Soluble fibers bind cholesterol in your intestines and secrete it from your body, and therefore you absorb less cholesterol. And low cholesterol levels are key to our heart health. Otherwise, you'll be overly taxing your heart, which may cause some real problems down the road. So 4, another benefit to eating beans every day. If you're pre-diabetic, or if you're diabetic, eating beans every day can help you get your levels in check. The high fiber content and low glycemic index, along with the high protein content of the legumes and beans, help prevent the unhealthy sugar spikes and plunges that we talked about earlier. If not controlled, they can lead to insulin resistance and uncontrolled diabetes. So we now have 4 ways. Beans contain a winning combination of high quality carbohydrates, lean protein, and soluble fiber that helps stabilizes your blood sugar and keeps hunger in check. And that's very important if you're trying to lose weight. And 5, your blood sugar will probably drop if you eat beans every day. Your blood sugar will drop because beans are rich in fiber, manganese, and potassium, all of which help maintain healthy blood pressure levels. And this is according to a registered dietitian. And she also said that potassium helps counter the effects of rising sodium levels. And as you know, sodium is the enemy of blood pressure. So the potassium that's present in the beans helps to control the sodium levels and which will increase your blood pressure. So the manganese that's found in the beans help to support normal blood flow. So overall, this is all good for your entire cardiovascular system. And the final word, beans are God-given, inexpensive, versatile, high fiber, nutritionally dense, and virtually fat-free superfood that we all can easily prepare and enjoy dried, fried, boiled, baked, stewed for good health. And so that's my final word on beans. And we're going to get back to finishing up our beans, plating them. And I have a special 2-for-1 treat for you. I will say this video is going to include not only my beans, but also featuring my vegan cornbread, as well as a diet-friendly, sugar-free, tasty dessert. So our beans are about where I really want them to be. At this point, if you are like my Jamaican friends, if you're wanting to add what are called spinners, which are basically little dumplings, to your pot, this is the point where you would add them. But because I'm not adding any spinners, I'm happy with where they are now. So I would want to. I'm going to taste them quickly for seasoning, because you want to know whether or not you have enough. And you don't need to taste the beans, because it's the juice, or the jus, as the French call it, that really flavors your beans. So if the jus is tasty, the beans are tasty. That's perfect. It needs nothing more. It's got good texture, it's wonderful flavor, really good. So I'm going to turn these off, and we're going to go to our plating station. Now, as we learned when we were talking, by combining beans with a whole grain, this is another recipe that's new for me, and this is our whole grain, which has decided it's not going to cooperate with me. So, and this whole grain is brown rice and quinoa. And quinoa is one of those ancient grains that has taken off here of late. If you are serving this as a meal, this is how I would serve it, with the brown rice and the quinoa. You could serve it as a side, or you may serve it as a, professional treatment, so now allow this to go undone. You would serve it on the side, whatever protein or veg that you're serving with dinner. But as a meal, this is how I would serve it and how I usually eat it, because nothing more is needed. With a nice side salad and a lovely piece of fresh baked cornbread. And if you are wanting any of the recipes that have been featured in this video, just hit me up on my email and I'll be happy to send it to you. As I said, everything here is prepared with organic ingredients. And I'm going to take a quick second, because we're only taking a second, to assemble our dessert. This whole meal is really high in fiber and vitamins, but very low in sugar and fat. In fact, as I said, we only use 2 tablespoons of oil to cook our beans. Now, this is cooperate with me. And I'm going to do it over just in case he decides to spit. I was the one that screwed it on you, so I know it should open. Okay. There we go. Mine's not cooperating, but that's okay. This we call it's called a very berry. If you're wondering what this is chai tea or chai pudding. And this is very easy to make. All you need is some chai seeds or chia seeds, however you want to say it. I say chai. My grandson tells me it's chia. So then we're going to have, this is a compote that I made using wild frozen blueberries. The chai pudding has in it a little vanilla, as a sweetener, some maple syrup, and some cinnamon, just for flavoring. And we're going to top this with some organic fruit, which I don't want to touch with my fingers. So, I'm going to use this for it. And we have some raspberries, some blueberries, trying not to touch fingers. Raspberries, blueberries, and some strawberries, all organic. And I do recommend, if you're eating berries, definitely want to buy organic, because the organic vegetable, even though there are questions about it, you don't want any fruit that you can't wash thoroughly. You don't want to have that. You want to make sure that it is organic, because with your other vegetables and fruit, you might be able to get away with not buying organic because you can wash them, such as your citrus fruits. But, so there you have a complete meal. The breakdown on that in terms of calories for your beans, 295 calories is all you're going to get from your beans. We've already discussed the vitamins and minerals that you're going to get. The chai tea is just chai seeds or chia seeds. You make the pudding very easily. I can send you the recipe. It only contains a half a cup of coconut milk, a little bit of cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. So any of these recipes you'd like, send them to my email, and I will be sure to send them to you. So I'm going to ask our wonderful camera crew to please do the honors of taste testing everything, and letting us know how he likes it. So I have, for your convenience, sir, I'm going to try to slip this right in there. Good. There you go. So thanks for coming.
Wow. Thank you, Chef. Thank you, Chef. It was wonderful. Gracias. Muchas gracias. It's tasty. I'm not there. I do not have the plates before me, but at least.
Yes, my daughter teased me just yesterday saying, "You've been eating beans for 2 straight weeks." And I can't stop. They're such a wonderful superfood that is readily available to everybody. It's very easy to make, as you can see. And they're just all over the place. They're easy to grow, easy to find. So there's no reason why we shouldn't have beans. And I shared with her some of the facts that I shared with you guys. Why I'm eating the beans every day? Because they're so healthy. And then you combine that with the chai pudding. Mm-hmm. I saw a question to someone to put in. I'm not looking at my thing about the chai pudding. It is not either K-Rob It doesn't have K-Rob and no chocolate. The
Oh.
dark stuff that you saw was a compote that I created using the frozen wild blueberries. Now, you can easily blend in to your chai pudding the fresh berries. I just happen to have some wild wild blueberries in my freezer, and that's what I used. But it is a simple 3-ingredient dessert. It is really good. It is high in omega 3 and high in protein and fiber. So if you look at, and it's very filling. It's very filling. So it's a good dessert. You get protein, you're getting potassium, you're getting low sodium, low cholesterol, almost no fat. The only fat comes in is in the milk that you use to make your pudding. I use coconut milk because that's what I typically drink. But if you're going to use the only fat coming into that pudding is going to be through your milk, because that's the only thing that's added. So depending on how much you're making, for like 1 cup of chai, for me with the coconut milk, I was only getting about less than 8 grams of fat. And there was no saturated fat at all because I'm using the plant-based milk. So yeah, it's just a wonderful thing. And I have started even incorporating my chai pudding into my desserts. So I made a cake for a party for a friend of mine, and I put some chai pudding on top. And one of the guests who was at the party called me just yesterday and was just couldn't believe it. She was like, that was so good. So you can incorporate it, eat it as a dessert. It's good for your family. Even little kids can eat it and enjoy it. It's very simple. It's very easy. It only takes a few minutes to make. And so just send me your request if you'd like to have that particular one.
Yeah, hey Terry, just right quick before I turn the program over to you guys for Q&As, we're gonna come up. For the audience, there will be a survey coming up on your screen. Should be coming up on your screen in just a couple of seconds, and we would like for you to just fill that out. It only takes like 3 seconds to fill out. And Terry, I want to be the camera guy next time.
No problem. I'm sure John would appreciate it.
It looked so good. So good. I know he was a happy man after filming that.
Well, I try to share with all my camera people. So if you come, you're going to get taken care of. It's
good deal. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to leave. I'm going to turn the program over to you and Ms. Lydianne, and for question and answers. I know you've seen some questions come in the chat. And then also what they can do also, if they want that recipe, your recipes, they can put their name in the chat box and we can make sure that we get with you to get all the information out to everyone. So again,
yeah, I usually write my recipes out, so it's easy. Like the last time, if you send me a request of which recipes you want, I will email them right back to you. So that's not a problem. And I put my email address already in the chat box. So
all right.
So here for the question and answer segment, Sister Terry, we have some questions here. The first question is from Veronica Ann. She's asking, should I rinse all canned beans or use the liquids for some other purpose?
I would highly recommend that you rinse not just your beans, but if you use, first of all, I have to recommend that if you can avoid using cans, don't use the cans, because the canned vegetables and things are usually cooked very high in sodium. So if you want to avoid hypertension, and if you're trying to control and regulate the amount of salt that you take in, you want to get as far away from canned and processed vegetables as much and go to your fresh vegetables or fresh frozen vegetables. A lot of people don't know that your frozen vegetables are actually fresh vegetables that they just flash freeze. So if you thaw them, you're getting a fresh vegetable which has not been processed, and it should not contain any salt unless it is mixed with something else like a gravy or some rice. I've seen some frozen vegetables that have rice and other noodles and things. Don't purchase those unless it's, you know, something that you want to use as a convenience every now and then. But you want to stay as close to the natural product that God has given us. So get the fresh vegetables whenever possible. And if you can't get the fresh frozen. Canned goods all need to be rinsed. So and I should have noted in the video that even if you're preparing canned beans sometimes can be hard. So you'll want to cook them until they're tender. So make sure that you cook the canned beans. Don't assume because they're in the can and they're cooked already, they're okay, because they can have some hard ones hidden in there too. So go ahead and cook them and prepare them the same way I've prepared these beans in this video.
Thank you, Sister Terry. Hope Veronica had the answer to her questions. So the second question is for the pesticides issue. Some people are afraid to eat beans and other seeds because of the pesticide. What is the advice you can give for that?
Well, in terms of pesticides, they are not as controlled as it used to be, which is what I mentioned in the video, that there's a question as to whether or not there's really any organic. When organic farming became popular back in the 70s and the late 60s, they had separate farms away from commercial farms and other farms where they would be able to raise their vegetables without the presence of any pesticides. But as their popularity grew, space became an issue. And so oftentimes when they are spraying their pesticides in the other farms, sometimes some of the spray may roll over into the organic farms. But as I said in the video, even if there was some pesticides present, buying organic ensures that the level of pesticides that you're going to get is going to be significantly less than if you purchase regular produce from a farmer's market or from a supermarket. And so for vegetables and fruit that you cannot wash very well, and I wash my vegetables, I like to wash them with a mixture of a very clean soap and some vinegar. I use regular white vinegar. I keep a big bottle of it by my sink, and I wash my vegetables, even vegetables and fruit that come in like my bananas. When I first get them, I wash them, because sometimes you notice you buy bananas at the store and then a day or two later you find these fruit flies everywhere. I found out that a lot of times the eggs of these fruit flies are laid in the bananas. And so when you bring them into your home, you may be bringing in the eggs from these fruit flies. So get in the habit of washing all your produce when you bring it home. And whether it's fruit, whether it's vegetables, wash them. And I wash them before I put them away. So if I have vegetables, I wash them and dry them and put them in the refrigerator. My fruit, I wash them, dry them, and put them in my display, because I usually keep it displayed there on the counter. So to avoid any bugs. So washing them with some vinegar, and I have a very soft brush that I will brush. But berries and things that you cannot wash like that, you want to definitely buy organic. You can still rinse them. I know a lot of chefs recommend that you don't rinse, particularly strawberries, but tests have shown that if you rinse them quickly and dry them, it does not negatively affect the taste of the berry. So rinse them, dry them, and then put them away. So any chance of pesticides and stuff is greatly reduced by you washing them. And for fruit like apples and things, I have a little spray jar that I actually bought at a hair place. I put my vinegar in and I spray it on that. And kind of with my hands create some agitation and then rinse them quickly. And the same thing with the berries. I'll spray it on there, maybe let it sip a little bit, then rinse them very well with the vinegar water. And then that helps to get rid of the pesticides.
Thank you for those useful information. Thank you. And this question also is from Sister Veronica again, or Veronica. She's talking about the ingredient, one of the ingredients you use in the pudding, the chia, saying that has caffeine and it is also a seed. So
yeah, no,
do
there's
you
two different
both
things. And that's my fault, Sister Veronica. As I said in the video, I say chai. It's not chai as in chai tea. It's actually chia seeds.
Okay, chia seed.
Chia pudding. And they are spelled very differently. You're absolutely right.
Chia seed and not chia.
I am not a linguist, as you figured out.
Yeah.
And so I will sometimes cross over. They're actually just chia seeds, and I use the black chia seeds. Now, the chia seeds are available black and white, and there really isn't any difference in terms of fiber and nutrition. But black is what I happen to have on hand. I don't mind the black speckly look, but if you have an issue with it, then use the white chia seed. But I have black chia seed, and that's what I use. And the chia seeds don't have any caffeine, so you don't have to worry about them. They are, again, among some of the God-given gifts for our original diet, seeds. And they're high, very high, as I said, in fiber and omega-3s. So that's a good thing for us. Again, the fat and the calories that you're going to get from your chia pudding depends on the type of milk that you're using, because that's the only thing that's going in there. That particular recipe only has berries, chia seeds, a little vanilla, and a little bit of milk, and that's it. Easy peasy. Oh, I did sweeten it. Now, in terms of sweeteners, I try not to use, if at all possible, white sugar or any, processed sugar. I try to use a more natural sweetener, such as stevia, not stevia, I'm sorry, agave, honey, or maple syrup. All of those are better alternatives to this cane sugar and the white sugar. So I will always have honey and agave and thank you for that, Veronica. Yes, hydrogen peroxide, you can get in a spray bottle now. That also will work. I happen to keep vinegars cheaper and it's easy to find, so I use vinegar. But you can use hydrogen peroxide. You'll want to make sure you rinse it very well.
Yeah, and this one also, she's asking if you can repeat the gas-free suggestion for the beans.
Sure. Now, with the gas-free, the main points are, number one, as you are introducing beans into your diet, you want to go slow. Don't try to eat a whole cup of beans in one sitting if you're not accustomed to eating a very high fiber diet, because your body needs time to adjust. So start out with maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of beans at a time. Chew your food very thoroughly and slowly. Make sure you are chewing it well, because carbohydrates start their digestion first in your mouth. So you want to digest as much as you can in your mouth. Then you can add certain herbs to your pot, which will help to dissipate the gassy and bloatingness of the beans. The ones I recommend is the one that I use, which is cumin. I love cumin with beans. It tastes really good, and you find it in a lot of Latin cooking. They use a lot of cumin when they're making beans. You can also use ginger, and then there are 2 other spices that are not easily found. One is the Indian spice, and I want to chew it up because, as I said, I'm not a linguist. I believe it's pronounced Ajawin, and it's spelled Ajwain. And then the other is a Mexican spice called epazote, and it's EPAZ, like zebra, OTE. There, you can look them up on the internet and see where you can find them. And I believe you can order them from different places. But make life easy for you. Any supermarket has cumin, and cumin will do the trick. Also, ginger is another spice that you can add if you like the taste of ginger, and especially if you're making like a Boston baked type bean, which tends to be a little sweet. Ginger will work very well with that. So you can put some ginger in your pot, and that'll take care of it. The other thing would be when you're using dried beans, it's very important that you soak them long and change the water frequently. You don't want to put them in a pot of water and then let it sit for 48 hours. That won't work. You need to change that water out. So every maybe 10 hours, dump the water and put some fresh water in. And again, do not cook with the water that you have been soaking them in. Once you are doing your final soak, drain those beans, rinse them again, and then add them to your pot.
Wow. Thank you, Chef. This is really, really useful information. Now from Veronica again, this is, I think, an additional information. Food grade hydrogen peroxide or vinegar can remove pesticide too. Yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we talked, I addressed that quickly, that the peroxide, the hydrogen peroxide will work. But you want to make sure you rinse them well. If you're using hydrogen peroxide, it has a very, it's not meant for cooking, so it doesn't have a good taste. So make sure you rinse them well, but the vinegar as well. If you find the taste of vinegar offensive, you want to make sure whether you're using the hydrogen peroxide or the vinegar that you rinse it well. I don't recommend the hydrogen peroxide for the berries, only because you don't want to have the berries soaking in the water. Yes, I've heard that too, Veronica, that you could put a little baking soda in your pot when you're cooking it. That's an old country technique. My grandmother used to use that, but honestly, I have never done it that way. I tried it once and I didn't know how much baking soda, and it just ruined the taste of the beans. So I never tried it again. Once I discovered cumin, I was happy. My beans taste wonderful and I don't have to worry about it, because baking soda has salt in it. It's sodium bicarbonate, and so it has a strange taste, and you'll notice that taste coming through if you use too much baking soda in your baked goods. So if you know the amount and you know how to use it, then I say use what works for you. But for me, what works is just adding a teaspoon or more, depending on how many beans I'm cooking, of cumin. And I haven't had a problem with the cumin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you don't cook with the baking soda. Well, I didn't know that, Veronica, when I first started using it. And I actually did cook with it. It was terrible. So I understand. Just thanks for that clarification. You're not cooking with the baking soda. You're putting it in the pot while they're soaking. Then again, you do need to make sure you rinse it well, because baking soda has salt. And you don't want your beans to be overly salty. So make sure you rinse very, very well if you're adding anything to that pot other than water. And I only usually soak mine in water. I just soak them in water and soak them thoroughly. Sometimes depending on the bean, because what I'll do to test to see if they're ready to cook, after I soak them, I squeeze them in my fingers. If there's no give, I let them soak. Even if it's been 48 hours, I let them soak some more, because you want your beans to be soft. For a whole bag of beans, that's going to give you probably about 4 cups soaked, depending on how big a bag you have. So I use my mind recipe, Veronica, is 1 teaspoon of cumin for every cup of beans. And that's to taste. You notice I added some cilantro. And in that recipe, I think I was doing 4 cups of beans. I think I used 1 or 2 tablespoons of cumin. And it's to taste, because I happen to like the taste of cumin. I also like the taste of cilantro. So you don't have to put the cilantro in there or as much cumin. You add your cumin, start with 1 teaspoon, per about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon per cup of beans that you're cooking. So if you're cooking 4 cups of beans and you're not sure about the cumin, I would just add 2 teaspoons to start. And then I would taste them, because the cumin taste will come through. Add a little bit more until you get what you like, what's to your taste, because ultimately you're cooking the beans. If you don't like the taste, you're not going to eat them. And so you want them to taste good so that you'll want to eat the beans. So start out, if you're making 2 cups, I would probably do maybe a teaspoon and a half to start with. And as you're tasting your beans, I made these beans so many times I don't use to taste them until they're almost done. But I recommend that you taste them at different stages while you're cooking and throughout the cooking process, so you can adjust the amount of salt and the flavoring, because you may find that you want a little more of one of the ingredients like the onion powder or the garlic powder, or maybe you want more garlic, you can toss it in your pot. So taste it throughout the process. Don't wait to the end like I did and taste it, but I've made them so many times. I was just tasting them really for salt, because I'm very conscious about salt. We have, in my family, we suffer from hypertension. And so I regulate the amount of salt that I take in, and I've adjusted the amount of salt that I use in my cooking so that I cook very salt light. But if you don't have issues with that, then you can do it to your own personal taste and preference.
Thank you, Chef.
No chef,
So,
it's a home cook.
yeah.
But
We
I
are
can't say
coming-
I can't say enough about the fact that, you know, beans are so inexpensive. They are a superfood, and they can be enjoyed and prepared in so many ways that there's no reason for us to ever get bored with eating beans. There's no reason for us ever to get tired of eating beans, because they do so much for us on the level. I don't know any other food that protects against high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high sugar, the hypertension and diabetes and heart. I don't know any other superfood that does all of that besides beans. Beans does all of that. And when you combine it with the wonderful whole grain, it becomes wonderful. You got a whole meal right there, and a cup of beans with a side of rice. And that particular grain that I use, I really like the way that the brown rice and the quinoa work together. And you can flavor it any way you want. And if you don't like quinoa, you don't notice the quinoa because the presence of the brown rice. And the brown rice adds additional fiber, as does the quinoa, and it's heart healthy as well as the quinoa. So whatever grain you choose, and there's so many now that we can choose from, make it one that you enjoy so that you will want to continue to eat your beans and your rice, because yummy. And whether you're using kidney beans or black beans or lima beans or cannelloni, eat your beans and enjoy.
Thank you. Enjoy your beans. Eat your beans. Don't be afraid. I think all has been said by Chef. In French, we say, merci, Chef. In Spanish, gracias, Chef. So I don't know if you still have the last words to say, but for me, I think you give all the information. If you still have something to add or to say, just to conclude, just go ahead.
Yes. And the recipes I have available for you, if you want them, are the vegan cornbread, the chia pudding, the beans, and I'll even toss in the recipe for the brown rice quinoa, because that's very easy.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a wonderful program. I am really looking forward to being a camera guy again.
No problem. You're welcome in my kitchen anytime.
Yes. I want to thank all those who joined in this evening. We really appreciate your support. And I believe we may have one more survey going up right now. And so if you can quickly fill that in, I would appreciate it. may I suggest the recipe to place on the screen? Someone just sent a chat, and I'm just reading this chat. Oh, that's a good suggestion. We can definitely consider that, placing the recipe on the screen, like while she's presenting or something like that. So that's a possibility. We'll definitely consider that. So that brings our program to an end. And once again, thank you. If we don't have your email, and I see that, Veronica, if we don't have your email information, please put your email information in the chat so that we can capture that and let you know, inform you of the next time that we will be meeting. So with that said, I am going to have a word of prayer to close out. Father, once again, we thank you for a wonderful time together. We thank you for our presenter and just all information that she shared. I had no idea that beans were so nutritional, and it's a valuable part of our life. It should be a valuable part of our life, in helping us to grow and even to exist longer in this life. So we thank you for that information, and we pray that the ears that these words fell upon may digest them and implement them in their lives, and as well as share the information with others. So we thank you for the time. We thank you, and we look forward to the time when we can meet again. May you continue to be with us throughout the rest of this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Once again, thank you very much. Have a good evening.